Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us on the third episode of the LinkedIn Live series we call AI Meets Climate Thought Leadership. These sessions are purely designed to bring you esteemed guests from the global climate engineering, infrastructure investment, and city planning industries to talk about their achievements and overall mission when it comes to AI and climate. I'm Jay Sadiq, the founder and CEO of FortyGuard, and I will be moderating this session today. And I will try my best to have a very engaging conversation with our guests and making sure that we make this session a very fruitful one. That said, let's lay out what the session will look like before I introduce our guests for today. Today's focus is on climate tech innovations that are not just making difference, but they're also actively shaping the future. We will delve into fascinating conversations on how AI and climate intelligence are unlocking a lot of solutions for environmental resilience. Those sessions will run for an hour, and we will try to make sure that the conversation is as engaging as possible. In this session, I'm very proud to be introducing two amazing founders, probably two billion-dollar companies that are doing amazing work when it comes to ocean technology and other things. And I want to first start by welcoming Liana. Liana Thompson is recognized by Forbes as one of the 20 women driving the future of climate tech and the 50 most powerful women in technology in 2023. She began her career as a 20 years old single mother who became a global reporter covering a lot of social, political, and environmental issues for NPR, the New York Times, the National Geographic, and her journalism really earned a lot of things, but three primetime Emmy nominations. So she's very driven by her passion for impact. Liana transitioned to an entrepreneurship, founding Aquaai and supporting startups focused on sustainability. Her ventures have earned her recognition, including being a 2022 Verizon's Climate Resilience Prize finalist and a 2020 EC Seal of Excellence recipient. Currently, she's serving as the CEO and co-founder of Aquaai, a frontier tech company that provides affordable, high-quality visual and environmental data through bio-inspired, fish-like autonomous underwater vehicles to tackle water stress, food scarcity, and biodiversity protection. I am super excited to have her today and to obviously learn about her technology and how she is doing it. On the other side, we have Jawad Jamil, is the CEO and co-founder of Ocean Harvest, bringing almost over 20 years of experience of leadership when it comes to the private equity, sovereign wealth funds, and the professional experience that he had in professional services. He has led many companies in healthcare, retail, and asset management, focusing obviously on innovation, merger and acquisition, and restructuring. And he holds an MBA from Triumph, LSE, and New York University, and HEC. At Ocean Harvest, Jawad is spearheading the UAE's first land-based aquaculture farm using circulating agricultural system called RAS technology to address food security and sustainability. He leads project management, fundraising, and go-to-market strategies, positioning Ocean Harvest as a leader in the MENA region, in the MENA region's aquaculture sector. Previously, as a CEO of MedSol Diagnostics, he achieved double-digit revenue growth and led a successful exit strategy. He also served as a CFO at the Gulf Healthcare International, focusing on finance and merger and acquisition, and he held a senior role in Retail Corp, Word, and Ernest and Young. On the other side, Jawad is like an advisor and a great mentor as well that I always lean into whenever I need support. So it's a great pleasure, really, to have you both here with us, and thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Thank you, Liana. Thank you, Jawad.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Jay. That was quite a flattering introduction. Thank you for having me, and obviously meeting again with Liana, who's a real trailblazer.
Thank you so much. And I'll go straight into the questions. By the way, this is one of the most watched sessions we had since we started the series. So I'm under the pressure that we have a lot of people watching us today, but also under the pressure that we have two amazing panelists here. So Liana, I'm going to start with you. You have a very extraordinary career trajectory from being a global reporter to becoming a climate entrepreneur of Aquaai. And this is really fascinating. I remember the first time we met, you were telling me about that. And for me, it was what a transition, right? What I wanted to ask you is if you could tell us more about what inspired you to create Aquaai and how your experience has shaped the company's mission.
Absolutely. Yes, my trajectory is different, but it all, every step in life leads you to where I guess you're supposed to be. I actually got involved with Aquaai, or founded Aquaai with my co-founder, Simeon Peterkowski. As a journalist, I interviewed many people, and he's actually one of the people that I sought out to interview because he was very well known for single-handedly building at least a dozen 2-meter tall humanoid robots or making all types of different gadgets. He had himself been involved with the climate sector since the age of 12, if you can believe it. He accidentally stumbled into a climate conference, and that was from that moment on, he's been reading every risk report on the planet. So what's happening and what we're experiencing today in the climate, I've been hearing about for at least the last 15 years since we met. So I actually got involved by doing a story on him. And it's been completely life-changing for me, obviously. I will note, though, I, as a journalist, eventually became an executive. So the jump from journalism to founding a company, I've had a couple of companies in the past, mostly in media. This is my first robotics company. But during my time with the New York Times, I was an executive. And so I was managing hundreds of people in New York City, producing hundreds of hours of television with P&L responsibility, legal, and all of that. So there's quite a few skill sets that I learned during my time as an executive that are transitionable or into running a company. In terms of managing teams, budgets, and then also as a journalist, it takes that hustle that you need as a founder to get access, whether it's to customers, get access to the right vendors, negotiate those contracts, as well as access to investors, and just all those necessaries that you need to grow a company. So different trajectory than most, but nonetheless, we've been around for a while now at Aquaai, and we're really pushing frontier technology and applying Simeon's knowledge and skill set in robotics and in climate and also water filtration. He's originally from Cape Town, South Africa. So water filtration and also making technologies that are applicable globally has been the aim of Aquaai. So all of that applies together, and yeah, I think that's how I became a climate entrepreneur.
It's quite fascinating, to be honest. Obviously, it's an interesting transition. But like you said, you ended up probably doing, the same thing. You were handling a lot of those tasks before becoming an entrepreneur. Maybe not the same size of people. Hopefully, it is in the very near future. But now you're also doing the same at a similar level. I think what really excites me about your transition is that you ended up doing something that you're really passionate about and can deliver a lot of impact. Not that journalism cannot do that, but I think you found your passion in something that is, there is a problem for it, and you wanted to be a contributor to it in order for you to solve it.
Yeah, I think when I covered conflicts, I covered global events, and I think when you see a lot of the things that I've seen and experienced, to be able to be involved with something that is also helping the planet, helping the future generations give life, as opposed to just reporting on, scenarios where lives are taken so often. I do think that I am doing what I should be doing, as I mentioned in the beginning. So, I think I'm happy, obviously I have kids, and when you look around you, you always are thinking, and that's actually how Aquaai was formed. Simeon promised his daughter that he would take all his skill set and apply it to the waterways. She learned about the ocean crisis and came home and said, "Dad, enough with the land robots. Make a robot that's going to save the seas." And he looked at what was out there and realized biomimicry and robotics, and this is what's necessary in order to make good on that promise.
Nice. I love it. And I'm going to try to spend enough time to talk about your technology because it's something that really fascinates me as well. And probably the audience is going to be really intrigued as well. But I do want to move to Jawad because Jawad's transition for me is quite a transition. Given that first time I talked to him, he was an investor. And then, only a couple of months later, I see him co-founding a company. So Jawad, you had obviously a very long and successful career in private equity, in venture capital. You're probably one of the greatest venture capitalists I've ever talked to before. And then in strategic leadership, taking many roles, senior roles, but also working in many industries. What led you to the transition to co-founding Ocean Harvest? And if you could share with us as well, like what unique roles does the company play in addressing both food security and climate challenges in the UAE?
First of all, I think I'll correct. I'm not a venture capitalist full time. I don't want your audience to go with wrong impressions. Just a newcomer, but that is something which I and Manav we do out of our own passion, out of our own intrigue and our focus that we want to make the world a better place for future generations. So I guess that was the career transition. And
I'm gonna move to you, Liana. There is something that really fascinates me when I learned about your technology. Is the AquaAI's concept called fish as a service. It's really intriguing, and it's something that I wanted to hear from you, but I wanted also the audience as well to hear all about it. Can you tell us more about the data harnessing, bio-inspired robotic fish solution that you have, and all the specific environmental and social impacts you're targeting with this technology?
Absolutely. So fish as a service is really about the fact that we are a SaaS model. So when you are a hardware-enabled software company, a lot of things that people just lock on is, robot fish, because let's face it, it's pretty cool, robot fish. So that kind of steals the show. And the fact that they also look and swim like a clownfish, and everyone loves, Nemo. So yeah, it does indeed. But I wanted to highlight the fact that we are a SaaS model. So the business model is that we lease the hardware that harnesses the robotic fish, that carries a payload of cameras and sensors, stays in the water up to a year. inductive charges, and it's all about monitoring, reporting, and verifying subsurface information that's visual and environmental. So our typical package carries salinity, dissolved oxygen, temperature, depth, pH, and we have the capacity to hold up to 16 different sensors as a plug-and-play modular sensor platform. The idea about it being biomimetic, again, it comes from Simeon's background in animatronics. He comes out of film industry originally in South Africa, where animatronics is used in many films. And so the application of biomimicry and robotics is where the form came from. But it also is not just to look cute. It's incredibly power efficient when you're using the undulation of a tail. It saves on battery power because we're swimming with the stream, and it helps in terms of immersing with the natural habitat. So that's another reason why we're using that form. So again, power efficiency, immersion, and also tight spaces. If you're going through canals, if you look out here, in Abu Dhabi, all the canals, and you want to check what the water quality is. Right now, there really isn't, besides a dipstick, somebody puts a static dipstick, that's their only way. So what we're really trying to bring through our automated, autonomous underwater vehicle, or fish-like autonomous underwater vehicle, is the integration of autonomous systems in smart city water management, in port management, in aquaculture, which we can talk a bit more about as well. So it's really about autonomous systems being integrated so that you don't have to rely on a dipstick in the water or the pollutants coming to you. We identify nutrient spikes. We geolocate problem spots and problems issues. So when you're talking about water security, you really want to know where those issues are coming from before they do larger damages. If we look at the floods, everyone got ill because the water was contaminated, especially after flooding. And so by being able to identify the health risks, the toxicities in those floodwaters, so that we can mitigate large epidemics or even pandemics, God forbid, and really for human health. So the environmental and the social gain is, yes, the environmental is obvious. We're watching water security, and the social gain is that we're helping humanity also stay healthier, I would say. And in the case of fish farms, and in SaaS, so, as I said, we lease the hardware, but you access the data on a web dashboard. So it's very simple. It's like you do you log on and you get the data sets, you get the visuals of what the fish sees, the robot fish sees, and you get all those data sets. Plus, as an alert system, you're sent an alert if we're passing any metrics that you have set as a customer that you want to know about. In the case of aquaculture, we're monitoring in each of the fish cages, the water quality, the stock health. We can look for tears in the net, so to mitigate escapes into the wild. And right now, over 50% of all the seafood that we eat is farmed. I know everyone says, "Oh, I don't want farmed fish. I want fresh fish." Well, there aren't that many fish left in the sea, so farmed seafood is now the way to go. It's also the lowest carbon footprint, it's been clearly stated. And so it's really about food security as well. And just referring back to smart city water management and water security, I mean, we all know that we hear it all the time, 71% of the planet's covered in water. So we need to protect those waterways, especially as the temperatures rise above 1.5. We need to have adaptation technologies and tools. And when you have over 50% of the populace also living within 3 kilometers of a water source, it just tells you right there that our water is very, very vital for our livelihoods as well as for our life source. The problem is that in all the climate technologies, water receives, I'm sure, Jawad, you know this too, only 2% of investment goes toward water technologies. Now, we are operational in fish farms, as I mentioned, but we're not just a fish farm, and we don't consider ourselves an aquaculture tech. We consider ourselves a water and food security technology. And again, as I pointed out, it's really about being an adaptation tool for a more climate friendly future.
Yeah, and I love that. It sounds like very holistic, and obviously it solves for the root cause of the problems that we're facing today. And I really like that. Jawad, I know we disconnected a little bit. That's what I hate about doing virtual calls. Is I love the in-person experience because there wouldn't be a disconnect. Just to remind the audience, I was asking you about the question to tell us about the transition that you had in your career to becoming the co-founding or the co-founder of Ocean Harvest. And if you could tell us more about the role of the company today in addressing both food security and climate challenges in the UAE.
Thanks once again. Apologies for those technical issues. So yeah, I mean, my transition was basically looking at what could I do sort of larger than life after what I've already done and achieved. Look at what sort of impact that I can create. Have worked in healthcare, so that was quite to the point during COVID was quite specialized, and being a frontliner, it was good to have that feeling to help people. So the impact was larger than what we anticipated, unfortunately, during those troubled times. But yeah, after I had done everything in healthcare, I thought I'll take a break, see what is out there. And then comes across my co-founder Robert with this fantastic concept and thesis that was ready for me to basically pick us up and partner together to make a massive impact, especially considering our region in the UAE and Saudi Arabia and the Gulf region, which obviously imports majority of our food. We've got particularly poor quality seawater because of desalinations and the brine and the temperature that's involved. So we wanted to get onto something that was allowing us to have an impact not just on our region, but rather a global picture as well. When you look at the challenges of today and the future, you look at the growing population. It's 7 billion going on to 10 billion in a couple of decades. You look at the massive protein requirement that is increasing as a result. You look at massive urbanization, which results in a lot of this protein increase. Then you look at the non-animal source, the animal source. With urbanization, all these demands are increasing, and we are already right at the edge, or probably beyond the edge, as far as food practices are concerned. The kind of land and water resources that are being used at this point in time are completely unsustainable. You look at fish farming, as Liana pointed out, 50% of the fish that is produced, more than 7,000 kilotons in the world, it comes from fish farm. And that is all farm fish. Over the last 2 decades, the seas haven't produced any additional, metric ton, kiloton, or any tonnage of food that is consumed. And the world, on average, uses 15% of its meat requirements comes from seafood. So this is solution, fish farming, and specifically RAS, that allows us, recirculative aquaculture technology, that allows us to be on the land, use as less water sources as possible, so the water is cleaned over and over again, and it goes through UV, ozone, denitrification, so a lot of processes involved. And that water reuse is up to 95%, so you only replace 5% of the water that daily goes into those fish farms. And this is very important, especially for our region. So when we look at our aquaculture and our seafood requirements, UAE in particular consumes quite a large, one of the top 5 countries globally per capita that uses fish and seafood products. So you look at the import practices, again, thankfully we are a rich country, and that is why the balance of payments and financial issues as deficits, etc., do not really come to the fore so much. But it's a realistic point of view that if you were to look at an average country, the number of dollars that are going out for import of food is massive. You look at the supply chain issues and the challenges that we have faced. Flights shut down during COVID, shipping canals shut down during the Suez crisis. So one after the other, you see supply chain disruptions. And overall globalization is turning into more globalization. So there is an increased amount of governments that are looking at not exporting or curbing exports of key resources. We have seen spike in prices of tomatoes and onions coming in from India, seafood, etc. So these are the conditions, that we intend to tackle in a very sustainable format. So while we are providing for food security by setting up a fish farm in our region, we are displacing massive imports that come in on aeroplanes that are completely unsustainable. The prices paid are unsustainable for the end consumer as well. And do that in a sustainable practices to achieve the SDG goals, reduce carbon emissions, improve water quality, and work with companies like Aquaai to improve the water life.
I love that, and I love how you've illustrated this into those beautiful sentences that really made it very clear for us. But I would like to just follow up on a question, maybe from an operational perspective. If you could tell us how the RAS system somehow integrates with water conservation and the sustainability as a process. If you could just outline this for us.
Yeah, so what RAS does is basically it pulls in the water. So we've got massive tanks on land in which fish are growing. Now, this water needs to be cleaned and replenished every half an hour for healthy fish. The added advantage of this is you don't get all these disease profiles, antibiotics, lice, etc., etc. No additional medicines and chemicals go into the water. The water goes in, the fish is fed every half an hour. The water goes out of the tank and it goes through a cleaning process. So you put in ozone, you put in UV lights, you kill the bacteria. Those bacteria are flushed out. The H2S gas and the nitrates that are released by the fish through sludge, that is also flushed out of the water. It's all cleaned. We, as a design, what we have developed is a specialized wastewater treatment system with Veolia that would integrate into our standard RAS. So that helps us increase the wastewater treatment and provide for solution along with RO, so the water that we pull out from the sea.
I love it. And thank you for simplifying this sort of complex technical process into something that anyone can understand. And I love, again, how you explain things. Liana, I want to move back to you. So you're leveraging a lot of AI and environmental data collection and analysis. I want to ask you more, how do you see AI evolving in the climate tech sector, and more probably particularly when it comes to driving accessibility to data and actionable insights?
Okay, well, obviously that's a great question, and AI is, a really broad field with numerous applications. I'll just start with telling you our approach differentiates between real-time processing on the robot and back-end analytics. On the robot, we're leveraging computer vision technologies to identify, as I mentioned before, tears and nets to detect anomalies in recognizing different objects of interest in different water bodies. This includes infrastructure inspection, tracking and monitoring of different species, and detecting derelict, let's say, sea cages, which there's quite a few of that going on off the coasts. And on the back end, we analyze the data collected by the robot to perform predictive analytics. And this allows us to understand environmental changes and to determine the necessary actions to address the changes. So that's how we're applying it. I think that everyone can say that AI is definitely a buzzword these days, and my engineering team has big discussions about what is AI really here. So that's is it more machine learning or whatnot? But for the sake of this discussion, and I hope they don't get mad at me. But that's how we're applying artificial intelligence. And as you know, I do think that it just expedites the process so much of everything. I mean, I'm sure everyone here is, you know, using ChatGPT or Claude or all of the different tools, Azure, that is out there for you to either code faster. I know I, as a writer, use it quite often for writing. And so I do think that it will expand more and more, and hopefully allow us to do the mitigation that we all intend to do in terms of the protection of the waterways, or even in the case of food security. You know, it's really about precision aquaculture as the planet grows. And Jawad pointed out rightly so, we can't keep existing practices. It's not sustainable. So it's really about precision farming, whether that's a robot using to identify the right tomato, or a robot or AI being used.
And maybe jump to you, Jawad. I know that you've worked a lot around technology, and it's obviously translated in a lot of the things that you've delivered. But I want to focus as well on your role at Ocean Harvests, and the focus that you guys have in technology-enabled agriculture. And specifically, I want to ask you, how do you see AI shaping the future of sustainable food production, and what role do predictive analytics play in your operations?
Quite a lot, I think. But I agree with one thing that Liana mentioned, is it's increasingly becoming a buzzword and quite abused. But I guess the right application of AI will only come with the amount of data that is available. I think without that, it's I guess it's a misnomer that is being used several times over and over again in various different sectors. For aquaculture specifically, the fish farming industry has been there forever. So it's been around for quite some time. But now, with predictive analysis, the data sets, the tools, etc., that are increasingly available from systems, it is easier to collect, not just with RAS systems, but also with legacy sea cage farming, to predict what sort of disease profile might build in, what sort of temperature changes may bring health impact for and welfare impact for the fish, and also what sort of feed that needs to be given, how to monitor the fish, the health, what sort of when you've got 100,000 of small fingerlings in a water tank, you need that camera, you need the the sensors, you need the data collection and predictive data to let you work in the right way in terms of fish farmers, to tell them where are the risk elements, where are biosecurity issues, what else can go wrong, and work on mitigation strategies from operational perspective. I think from food security perspective, AI has a huge role to play. I think you look at alternative proteins, you look at the increasing number of companies that are coming up with solutions, the modeling, the data, building of the right sort of structure, the enzymes, the modules and modulation of growth of those cells. It all relies on the number of data and processing speeds. And with increasing number of power and technology and predictive analysis, it's becoming easier for those sectors to work and improvise on providing solutions much earlier than earlier.
And Jawad, on the same wave, what do you see as the biggest challenge, or probably the greatest opportunity in the climate tech space today? Since we're talking AI, we're talking about a lot of the opportunities that are out there, but we're builders, and obviously we have a lot of challenges. So where do you see those challenges, and how can we navigate turning those into opportunities, like specifically in your sector?
I hope a few people from Abu Dhabi and Saudi capital bases are listening into this part. I think the biggest challenge is funding for climate tech as a whole. I often listen in conferences that a lot of private equity companies, growth stage, VCs, government funds often talk about we want to deploy X billions of dollars towards climate tech solutions, etc. If you look at today and do a general analysis, most of that money is deployed towards regenerative energy solutions. That's it. It's either solar or wind or these kind of things. Liana pointed out earlier, just 2% of the funds go towards water technologies, for instance. Similarly, food solutions, climate solutions need to have the right sort of economic model. Ultimately, I recall something from one of my professors at Stern, Damodar, and he said ESG has no value at this point in time or cannot prove increase in valuations of companies unless and until you actually prove that value generation. And that revenue or profitability generation needs to come on the back of an investment plan. Now, most of the companies or most of the investment on the horizon is earmarked for energy conversion or transitioning. Your transition will only happen when the building blocks are there, and nobody is putting the money on building blocks. So unless there are pillars to transition, you can't build a building on top. I see that as being the greatest challenge. I see that quite often spoken by far smarter and brilliant people compared to myself. But they miss the point that transition will only happen when you start from point zero, you go to one and then two. You can't immediately invest on five because no companies will exist. And that is why not a lot of investments have happened today.
That's very interesting. Jawad, reminds me of a very close friend of mine who's now an investor, but he was in operations. He used to say, "Where's the money? Where's the money?" Um, we're probably in a place that has a lot of capital, right? Like in the GCC, and a lot of funding is happening. But where do you think this funding is going? Like if it's not going for climate tech, or if a lot of things are happening in or invested in our sector in terms of like climate tech and other solutions such as yours, why we don't see this affected in funding requirements such as your companies. Obviously FortyGuard and any other company in the climate tech space in this region is wondering about the same. Why we don't see this impact if someone is there to claim that there is funding happening?
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, you need to look at what sort of mandates do investors have in the region.
Nice.
When you skim through the sovereign wealth funds, majority of them are focused on big ticket items. And when you look at transactions north of $100 million, $200 million, that would be the starting point for them to come in as a part of shareholder, but not in its entirety. So basically, they need projects which are north of $500 million. So that pulls the whole sovereigns out of the game, right? So then you look at what sort of funding will trickle in at the lower stages, and then you start looking at VCs. Now, VCs like to come in pure tech space, not infrastructure space. There are very few who would take a bet on infrastructure related, and I feel that is a gap to be filled by someone in investment space, that they need to look at infrastructure backed VC funding for projects that will in future allow for transition. Pure tech from climate perspective, some of them do have investments. I think there is Carbon Cipher and a couple of companies, startups who are doing a fantastic job, who have invited good VCs on board. But then again, VC climate is also changing. We've seen over the last couple of years how it's been difficult, it's been challenging across the globe, across our region. We need to understand what VCs have to return to their investors as well. So put ourselves in their shoes and come up with business models that do make money, which I feel a lot of startup founders miss the point. And that is what is important for VCs. You look at the life cycle of those VC. A lot of those first and second vintage funds are also coming to a close in next 3 to 5 years. So they are at a point where they will not invest new money unless they raise new funds. and they will only get new funds when they show performance from the last vintages. So it's a vicious circle. Hopefully, in the coming years, I think with overall mandates at a higher level or at transition space, and probably Series C, Series D reflect on more positively into early stage startups.
Nice, and I love it when you started with the mandate. Obviously, there is something to be done on both sides for the founders, for the investors, but I think mandating things will probably accelerate a lot of those initiatives from both sides. So we can have a much more faster, but much more as well healthier funding space in the climate tech sector in this.
So one small comment. I think that mandate, at least in one side, at one side, you can clearly see is Agua. I don't know how many of you have heard it, but that's the agriculture water vertical that has been created at ADIO. So that is, that shows signs that the mandates are being revised and being redeployed and creating business generation in the country in the right spaces.
Nice. Love that, Jawad. Liana, we probably missed a little bit.
Can I just add? I just want to add to this conversation, if that's okay.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you the same question. I'm not going to ask anything different than that, because I know you have a lot to say and you've been taking a lot of notes. So go ahead.
No, I just getting, as we're talking about what needs to be done here, I mean, the UAE has the water security strategy of 2036. And I think it's anticipated that where I read that the expected GDP loss is close to $27 billion from 2022 to 2050 due to water risks. So yes, there has to be, the action of putting in the strategies in place. There's also the aquaculture strategy that's being put into place for food security purposes. So there's definitely the conversation around there. And I would agree that a lot of the capital has gone to understanding the problem and creating the reports and some action items. But now I think the next step is, it's great to have the strategy, but now we need the tools, and those tools take capital. And not all of those tools are large infrastructure projects. Some of them are the desalination plants that are coming in, but there are other projects and companies like ours here.
So I'll probably move back to you, Jawad, and because we're already, anyways, 10 minutes to finishing this session. I want to discuss with you probably the next 5 or 10 years in terms of like key milestones and innovations you hope to achieve, and how do you envision that your company will be able to contribute to more sustainability in the future? I'll start with you if that's possible.
Yeah, well, what we're looking for is obviously starting off early doors to start building this infrastructure or the fish farm, do an MVP with a specific species that allows us entry into the market, demonstrate that the technology works, sort of de-risk for a lot of investors that they wanted to, and then go on to other species that can be grown at a large scale. Displace, our markets are growing at approximately 8 to 10% CAGR, both UAE, Saudi. And when you look at the kind of food consumption, the number of tourists that are coming in and the food space changing, we need more and more food displacement. So the imports need to be displaced, and localized food production needs to come in. We also see from a lot of chefs, culinary specialists, etc., that they're requesting that locally sourced ingredients be made available. I think that the new consumers' mindset is shifting more towards more sustainable food practices as well, which is helpful. For businesses like us, like yours, like Liana, that want to make an impact for the future generations. And so we hopefully, will be there, will be successful in 5 years' time, and then take this from our region on to further eastwards and westwards, and improvise, continue to improvise on these technologies, and become a tech player, pure tech player from RAS perspective as well, and an integrated food producer in aquaculture space.
Nice. And I think with your leadership and what you guys are doing, all the amazing stuff that you have been doing and you continue to do, I'm sure that we're going to see a lot more than that in the next 5 or 10 years. And I'm excited to see that journey as well. I think we've had a fantastic session, although we had a lot of technical issues, but hopefully we can resolve all of that for next time. I want to take this chance to probably I'm going to go ahead and end the session. And I want to take this chance to thank you so much for a fantastic discussion, Liana and yourself, Jawad. I'm sure there are a lot of great questions that are there in the comments. So I'll leave you to, first of all, the guests were probably making a lot of comments, and I'll leave you to answer all of those comments on the LinkedIn live session, so they can add it there and they can connect with you and learn more about ocean harvest and all the amazing things that you guys are doing. Liana, you're back.
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know. I haven't had this experience before.
No, don't worry about it. I wanted to end the session, but I don't feel that it's fair to finish it before. I want you to probably complete on what you wanted to discuss or present in terms of the challenges, and also if you could tell us a little bit about your vision for the next 5 to 10 years in terms of like your technology. What do you hope to achieve, and how do you want to achieve that? Maybe if you could touch base on that in a few minutes, I would appreciate it.
Sure, if I don't lose you. Okay, so yes, there is a gap. I think what we see a lot of is, let's get the startup, let's give them 50K, let's put them on the stage, and let's have them parade and show that we're doing something. And then there's nothing for commercialization. So when we're talking about infrastructure and growth, whether, if you've already identified customers or if you've proven your technology, there's that gap in the investment community where, as you mentioned, Jawad, VCs aren't really eager to invest in infrastructure. They say, oh, go deliver the units and then we'll invest on your, after you've commercialized, when the time you actually need the capital is to commercialize. So I do think that we need to stop putting so many $50,000 checks to people to get them on a stage and play climate startup, but actually save some of that to help those companies that have proven their technologies to commercialize, especially when you're talking about climate. Most climate, there's a hardware element. It's not all software. There's, majority have a hardware element, and that is required, that's capital intensive. Although we try to make our unit economics is actually quite low in terms of what it costs for us to create the 3D printed drones and what we actually lease them for. So thankfully also a lot of hardware costs are coming down, which makes it great for the climate sector because it is very hardware focused in terms of real impact. And I think investment in commercialization is greatly needed. We tend to focus mostly on angels and family offices for our growth, and we do have a handful of great VCs that have joined, like Boost VC, Adam Draper, and Ad Astra, and Backstage Capital, and DTN out of New York. So we have had some VC capital, but most of our growth is from angels and family offices. I would also like to point out that as Aquaai grows, our focus is, really having these machines, these robotic fish all over the globe. It's much the same. We like to aim to be the John Deere of the waterways. So, everyone knows that you need a tractor, right? There's thousands and millions of tractors around the planet, whether you're building houses or doing aquaculture, just because you want to own and ride a tractor because everyone loves riding them. So I imagine that's like the John Deere. So we aim for Aquaai to be the John Deere of the waterways, that entity or that company that is affordable for everyone, that is reliable for everyone, and is easy to use, much like the John Deere tractor is. You got a rabbit, turtle, whatever. So it's really about having large impact, scalable impact globally everyone, and across all of the different blue economy industries as well. In terms of what your question is in where I see our milestones as a company, I see us developing other types of biomimetic underwater systems. It's always autonomous, always affordable, but to do other tasks. Maybe it's to pick up water hyacinth, and help turn that into biofuel. Or maybe it's to do some work in oil spills where we're helping that. So there's always the biomimicry aspect to Aquaai, but it's perhaps not always just going to be a clownfish, or maybe one that flies or walks, or I don't know. But definitely a tool that everyone can use. It's really about having that hammer or that John Deere tractor or that tool for everyone in the waterways to reach to and to be able to afford. And I think I hit on all of the topics. Again, I apologize if I was dropping out and freezing. I hope
No, don't worry about it. The audience were really loving this and being entertained.
I just want to interject one more thought. We are talking about food security a lot here, and I love what you guys are doing over at Ocean Harvest, and would love to continue that conversation, Jawad. Especially as we really do have to look at the growing populace and the issues around food security. And what I love about being in this region, because Aquaai was founded in Silicon Valley, and we've recently expanded here and have operations here, and are looking to grow those operations to meet the demand around food security. And both here and in KSA, where their seafood targets are 600,000 tons by 2030, I think is what I read was their target. So in order to reach those targets, getting back to where I dropped off, it's about precision aquaculture. We really need to be precise. We need to mitigate our carbon footprint, and we need to focus on a global scale in water on adaptation technologies, adaptation to the climate crisis, to the water stress, and to food security.
Nice. Thank you so much, Liana. That was a great input and a feedback. And thank you so much for sharing your time with us and all of those amazing insights. Jawad as well, thank you so much. I think this has been an incredible session. Funny, Jawad, we touched on investing. The team and I, we wanted to dedicate a session only to talk about investing in the climate tech space in this region. And we wanted to invite you to that discussion. So when your name popped up for this, the team was arguing, no, we should keep him only for the investment session, because that's going to be quite engaging. But I'm glad that we touched base on that, and obviously there is many more to come. I think both of you, your work really truly is very inspiring, and I'm sure that our audience here have learned a great amount of, or a great deal of information and insights that are probably helpful. To everyone watching, thank you for joining us today. I'd like you to stay tuned for more episodes of AI Meet Climate Thought Leadership that we will deliver in the future. We will continue to explore a lot of the cutting edge of climate innovation. And I want to also take the chance to thank the team behind producing this session, my colleagues, Shifa and Abdullah, who worked tirelessly to make this a success. Jawad, Liana, thank you so much for joining us. And until next time.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.